Natural farming is a system of agriculture which makes use of only the naturally available inputs. Minerals in the soil is a natural input that plants receive free of cost. The categories and quantities of mineral elements required by plants were discovered about 200 years ago. It is a rule in botany that unless a substance is dissolved in water, the plant roots cannot take it up. However, the mineral compounds naturally occurring in the soil were found to have extremely low water solubility, making it difficult for plants to take them up from the soil. This realization led to the practice of using water soluble chemical compounds as fertilizers in agriculture. The presence of healthy green plants in uncultivated areas indicated that there exists in nature a mechanism which enables plants to obtain minerals from the soil. But instead of attempting to find out how to make the soil minerals easily available to plants, the agricultural scientists developed agriculture based entirely on the use of chemical fertilizers. Mass production of water soluble fertilizers from naturally occurring mineral deposits containing phosphorus and potassium was relatively easy, but mass production of nitrogenous fertilizers posed a problem. It was solved in 1913 by a German chemist named Haber, who developed a process of making ammonia by combining hydrogen and atmospheric nitrogen under high pressure and high temperature. Farmers readily accepted the chemical fertilizers because the mineral elements were present in a more concentrated form in the chemical fertilizers than in the traditional composts and minerals, making the chemicals more convenient to use. The fertilizer industry has grown today to become one of the major industries of the world. Its magnitude can be realized when one considers the fact that the industry uses more energy than any other industry in the world. In spite of the propaganda being made for chemical fertilizers by the agricultural universities and by agricultural extension agencies of the government, some activists in the state of Maharashtra were busy popularizing a system of organic farming in which they recommended application of just a small quantity of organic matter to the soil instead of chemical fertilizers. A survey conducted in 1990 by a student of mine revealed that thousands of farmers in Maharashtra state followed this system of agriculture. The survey also showed that they obtained high yield from their crops and that their profit was always high because they did not spend any money on chemical fertilizers. Most of them reported that their crop had hardly any pests and diseases, so that their expenditure on pesticides was also quite low. I therefore conducted some experiments to study the response of the soil and the plants to small doses of organic matter. I discovered that organic matter, even in the form of plain sugar, not only induced the soil bacteria to proliferate but also induced the crops to give higher yield. The positive correlation between the bacteria in the soil and the soil fertility is a known fact. It is explained by agronomists by assuming that the organic matter in the soil is used by the bacteria as their source of carbon, leaving behind the minerals in the organic matter to enhance the soil fertility. But the fact that even plain sugar caused the soil fertility to rise proved this explanation to be wrong because bacterial degradation of sugar does not leave any minerals behind. It was known to botanists since about 1950 that roots of all land plants exude biocides into the soil. It was assumed that the biocides protect plants from pathogens in the soil. I proposed in 2017 a hypothesis that plants used these biocides to obtain minerals by killing and consuming soil bacteria. This hypothesis received support from the research conducted by a colleague of mine who showed that the population density of soil bacteria was reduced by about 75% when plants were raised in the soil for a period of just 40 days. Further support to my hypothesis was provided by a wastewater purification system called the root zone technology. In this technology, domestic wastewater containing human fecal matter is allowed to pass through soil beds on which plants have been established. This simple treatment reduces the population density of coliform bacteria in the wastewater by as much as 97%. Various other experiments conducted by me and by my colleagues during the last 3 years supported this hypothesis. Since the soil bacteria are consumed by the plants as their source of minerals, it is possible to grow crops by supplying them solely with bacteria. All soils contain bacteria which proliferate when provided with any digestible organic matter. During proliferation, the bacteria take up minerals dissolved in the capillary water in the soil. The capillary water represents a saturated solution in the soil minerals in which the concentration of dissolved minerals is always maintained at the level of saturation, which is a constant because the minerals removed from the solution by the bacteria are replaced by a corresponding quantity of soil minerals getting dissolved in the capillary water. The bacteria differ from soil to soil, but since all living organisms have the same minerals in their cytoplasm, it is immaterial which bacteria are killed and consumed by the plants. On the basis of experiments conducted by me and also by others, I recommend the application of a basal dose of about 25 kilograms per hectare of a digestible biomass, that is sugar or starch, to the field 1 week prior to sowing the seed. If the soil is too dry, it should receive a light irrigation. The bacteria use the sugar as a source of carbon and proliferate so that when the seed germinates, the seedlings have enough bacteria in the soil to feed on. After germination of the seed, the crop should receive additional bacteria to replace the ones consumed by the seedlings. These bacteria are obtained by keeping overnight a mixture of sugar, soil, and water in a tank. This bacterial soup is applied to a standing crop as a top dressing. Because of variable local conditions, the process of making the bacterial soup, the quantity to be applied to a crop, and the frequency of application should be standardized by each farmer to suit his own requirements. Let me clarify here that the biocides in the roots kill and consume not just the bacteria but also a number of other living organisms in the soil. They include protozoa, nematodes, fungi, as well as insect larvae. This characteristic of the plants also explains why the swarming locusts lay their eggs in deserts where there are no plants. This is because if they laid their eggs in soil having plants, the larvae emerging out of the eggs would be killed and consumed by the plants. It is also interesting to note that although our ancestors knew neither chemistry nor microbiology, almost 60% of the Ayurvedic drug formulations are based on roots of various plants.